Good evening, everyone. Welcome to my GOASI Con review. Before we begin, I will provide some context on GOASI Con, or GOASI. Either one of those, but I think it's GOASI. GOASI Con started in 2019 under the name GOASH. GOASI stands for Geek Out at Staten Island, while GOASH stood for Geek Out at Snug Harbor. It is a variety event, which means there is no specific focus. However, it is heavily geared towards anime, manga, video games, cosplay, and other facets of Japanese culture. They have always been at the Snug Harbor Botanical Garden and Cultural Center in Richmond, Staten Island, or SI for short. This is a large outdoor venue. The organizers are the Muslim Sisters of Staten Island. This is a summer event taking place either at the beginning of August or on Labor Day weekend. In 2020, the pandemic hit. Just like everything else, cons were forced to either cancel, move online, or adopt a hybrid system. Most cons take place indoors, which was a health hazard during the peak of the pandemic. These moved online. Since GOASH took place outdoors, they were able to implement a hybrid system. Saturday would be in person and Sunday would be remote. This hasn't changed, even with the more relaxed pandemic rules. I caught wind of this event back in 2020 at a photo shoot. The organizers participated in the shoot and spread the word about this event. For 2 years, I have wanted to attend, but was unable to due to unforeseen circumstances. This year, 2022, is the year. I found out one of my friends was hosting a panel, so I wanted to show my support. Obviously, just being on SI, this did not require much planning at all. My biggest fear was transportation. SI is the only borough of Manhattan that does not have a subway. Residents either drive or take buses everywhere. To get there from Manhattan, one must take a ferry. There are 2 ferries that go to Staten Island. One is the Staten Island Ferry and the other is the NYC Ferry. Both ferries leave from Whitehall Station in downtown Manhattan and arrive at St. George Station on Staten Island. The Staten Island Ferry is larger, and its services are completely free. The catch, it only runs every 30 minutes and takes about 30 minutes to get from Whitehall to St. George. This one goes by the Statue of Liberty, making it a popular tourist attraction. On the other hand, the NYC Ferry, colloquially known as the Fast Ferry, is smaller but costs $2.75, the same as a subway ride. This one is quicker, making the trip in about 15 minutes. It is favored by commuters. Upon arriving at St. George, one must take a bus to Snug Harbor. There are 2 buses that go there, the S40 and the S44. Both run about every 15 to 20 minutes. Each ride costs $2.75. For GOASI specifically, the S44 bus is preferred since it brings you closer to the event area. I suffer from terrible motion sickness, so I don't usually ride buses. I've crossed a bunch of cons off my list for this reason alone. Ever since the parasailing adventure in Miami, though, I have tried to remedy the situation using ginger gum and non-drowsy Dramamine. The ginger gum works, and I even used it on the Amtrak ride to and from Otakon. Since I now have this, I'm more willing to take buses. With transportation figured out, the next thing on the agenda was, which cosplay will I wear? I decided to do Fecto Forgo from Kirby and the Forgotten Land. I really liked the outfit and felt that it didn't get enough spotlight at Otakon. And of course, the event I did wear it to ended up being a disaster. So I wanted a redo. Luckily, this one doesn't have a large prop, so I didn't need to worry about transporting it. Once I decided on my cosplay, everything was ready to go. I packed up the night before, so all I needed to do in the morning was get dressed and run. The morning of GOASI arrives. My original plan was to get up at 8:30 a.m. and catch the 10 a.m. ferry, then the 10:30 a.m. S44 bus. GOASI started at 11, so this would get me there right at opening. This did not go exactly to plan. Since I had gotten a lot of sleep the day before, I woke up early in the morning around 6. I tried going back to sleep, but I wasn't tired enough. I just sat in bed until 8 and then got up, fed Sarge, got dressed, and left by 8:30. I ended up getting to the ferry terminal at 9:25, just in time to catch the 9:30. One of my friends was hosting a meetup, so I found them and joined. The ferry itself is big. There are 3 floors, a lower, middle, and top. The top is where one can view the Statue of Liberty, so it's popular. Since it wasn't as crowded, we got a seat on top. I was able to get a nice view of the Statue of Liberty, but it was far away. The ferry doesn't go go close enough to really get a good view of it. The waves were calm, so I didn't suffer as badly. We arrived at the ferry terminal around 10. Upon arriving, we had to walk through to get to the buses. It was a little confusing, but luckily my friend knew what he was doing. The S44 bus pulled in right as we walked out of the station, so we made a break for it. Imagine seeing a group of cosplayers running for a bus on your way to work. It was quite hilarious. Thankfully, we made it on just in time. We made it to GOASI around 10:30.
And yes, it is.
Oh.
Looks like.
Oh, this is it?
This is usually the entrance.
This is the entrance right here.
But
Yeah. Oh, check-in.
Where's the check-in?
That's right here.
No, they went over there.
yeah.
But since the con didn't start until 11, we were just standing there at check-in doing nothing. Most of the group were either panelists or performers, so they had to be there early. At least there wasn't a line. Some of the vendors were already set up, so I walked around and bought a few things. There was one booth handing out free school supplies. I picked up a lunchbox for myself and another lunchbox and some colored pencils for my neighbor's daughter. This is my first criticism of GOASI. I understand that the event didn't start until 11, but there is no reason for us to just stand there at check-in doing nothing. You should plan for some early arrivals, so a rep should be stationed there to give out badges. The next thing, my friend's panel was supposed to start at 11:30. It's about con survival, so it makes sense that it would be first. But the organizers ran an hour behind. What was supposed to be an 11:30 panel turned into a 12:30 panel. We even had time to get lunch beforehand. There is a small concession stand on site called Harbor Eats. They sell stuff like sodas, hot dogs, chips, the usual. It wasn't that expensive. I got a soda and a hot dog for $7. Problem is, they don't open until 11. I didn't eat breakfast before going, so I wanted to get something when I arrived. The con hadn't set up their food vendors yet, and this venue is basically the middle of nowhere, so I had to wait for my food. By time 12:30 rolled around, I was waiting for my friend's panel to start. I finished eating early, so I got to see them setting up. Because they were late, this panel clashed with one of the performers. There were two areas, a main stage for performances in the cosplay contest and a smaller blue tent for panels. The main stage had loudspeakers which overpowered the panelists. My friend waited for the performer to finish, but the con played music and ran housekeeping announcements during his panel. That music was far too loud, so it was distracting and dissonant, made it very hard to focus on the panel. We were also seated outside under the hot sun. The panelist was under a shady tent, but the glare made it difficult to see the presentation. I didn't see any of that presentation. His microphone also cut in and out. He's done this panel before at larger cons like Anime Boston and PucciCon. They usually give him an hour, so his presentation is really detailed and in-depth. Here, they only gave him 30 minutes, but it doesn't seem like they told him that ahead of time. He had to rush through the second half of his presentation. I felt badly for him. I mean, he made do with the circumstances, but really, it should have been better organized. They should have told him how much time he'd have. That is the most important thing to know when you're booking a panelist. After the panel, I went with a different friend to sign up for the cosplay contest. An ice cream truck pulled up, so we both got a blue Italian ice. That was good. Much needed after sitting in the sun. We then proceeded to walk around and eventually sit down. There was a video game meetup, so we waited for that. The con itself is small, and there isn't anything in the area to do. We found ourselves sitting around a lot. Too much, actually. Once 3 p.m. struck, we headed over to the video game meetup. Another criticism, there wasn't a specific meetup location. There was this big tree, which is where it seemed like all the meetups happened, but it wasn't official.
Like prop check. Yeah. When I run onto this one.
There should really have been a specified meetup location. Snug Harbor is large. It is a large park. It is confusing if it's not specified. It also seemed like the meetups lacked organization, like the video game meetup, for example. We didn't take a group photo or anything. We just scattered with one of the photographers and did singles. We ended up getting nice photos, but still. There was a prejudging aspect to the cosplay contest. Mine was at 4:35 and my friend's was right after. We headed to the main stage for it. Once that was done, we just found a place to sit. Again, we had done everything by this point and we're just waiting on the contest. The contest was at 6 p.m. and we left right after. The ride back was nothing to write home about. Is it worth a $25 ticket? In my opinion, no. I had friends who had discount codes, so I used one and got $5 off. He had to contact the organizers since it didn't work at first. First, they ran an hour behind, so everything had to be pushed up. Second, there weren't that many vendors and artists. It was small. Too small to even be considered a con. I'd say it was more like a street fair, and even then, that's stretching it. There was another fair there that looked bigger, and that one was free, too, so. Third, There were a lot of interludes where we were just sitting and doing nothing, and there wasn't even ample seating. I saw some people sitting on the floor on blankets. Fourth, there was no specific spot for meetups. They ran a bunch of meetups throughout the day, but didn't give an official spot. There was a tree that was the de facto spot, but it wasn't official. Fifth, the meetups lacked organization. There was no host, and the photographers didn't even know what they were doing. Sixth, a lot of the activities wrapped up early. This con was supposed to be until 8, but one of the main activities, the hamster ball, was out of there at 3. Some of the vendors were also out by 4. Finally, the cosplay contest took place late. For larger cons, this makes sense, but for a small event like this, it really should have been earlier. I would have been out of there by 4 p.m. if it wasn't for that contest. Another thing, they didn't check tickets at many of the activities. Because it was in a public park, non-ticket holders could just walk in and participate. Even the cosplay contest, they didn't check anyone's tickets. Anyone could just walk in there. They even tried telling a few people that it was a paid event and that they needed a ticket, but they really can't stop a person from entering because, well, they're on public grounds. This just makes it worse because why did I pay $20 for the ticket when it seems like I could have just walked in, said I was a participant, and done everything for free? I went all the way there from NYC. It's not a terrible excursion, but it wasn't worth it for what I got. If you like smaller events, have kids, like more family-oriented events, or are local, then drop by. It doesn't hurt, but it's not worth traveling from NYC for. I think the best word to describe it would just be empty. There wasn't much there. On a scale of 1 to 10, I give it a solid 6, but I won't be returning. It's really the lack of organization and the size that ruins it. You've been doing this event for 3 years. You should be more organized. There is no excuse for that late start and the lack of organization for the meetups and just no excuse. No excuses. I gave it a fair chance.